I confronted my best friend over a secret affair. He smiled like a friend and lied like a stranger. We sat in a corner booth at Pinecone Diner, rain stuttering on the window like a nervous drummer. I set my phone face up between the salt and the napkin holder. Mason glanced at it once and gave me the same tight grin he wore at weddings and parking tickets. "You're being dramatic," he said. "It's nothing. I work nights on an ambulance. When people say it's nothing, I measure their pupils. I count the seconds between words. I log the time, because time is a witness that never forgets. I am 30, steady, a little stubborn, careful with promises. For a decade, Mason has been the brother I chose. Moves, jobs, flat tires, Sunday basketball, handshakes at funerals. And yet somewhere between the last laugh and this lukewarm coffee, the ground shifted enough to show the ditch underneath. 3 weeks ago, his location sharing went dark because of a phone update. 2 weeks ago, he borrowed my jacket and returned it with a hotel keycard in the pocket. Last Tuesday, he sent a photo from his couch while my doorbell camera filmed him jogging past my building at the same minute. I kept screenshots. I kept receipts. I told myself he was planning a surprise for Nora and I should mind my own heartbeat. Nora, my partner, is funnier than the world deserves. She calls the diner coffee mud with ambitions and always steals fries from my plate. Lately, her smiles arrived late and left early. "It's just stress," she said. She started leaving earlier for the gym and coming home later with eyes that didn't match her day. I didn't want a story. I wanted a simple answer that didn't hurt anybody when you said it out loud. "Tell me why your Uber receipt shows you at the Maplewood garage at 11:42 p.m. I said, tapping the screen. "You texted me at 11:41 that you were home." "Glitch," he said. "Phones are dumb. Are we really doing this?" "We are," I said, and the word felt like a seatbelt clicking into place. Aunt May says trust is a bridge that notices weight. Lately ours creaked. I heard it while he buttered toast and called me buddy, with an extra syllable of patience. I slid the phone on the table and finally pressed record. I met Mason at 15 when a basketball rolled into my ankle and a boy with a busted smile yelled, "My bad," and meant it. We traded cafeteria desserts, then secrets, then plans. After my mom's car died sophomore year, he drove us both to school in his dad's dented sedan with a radio that only played oldies and AM preachers. He was the first person to visit me after my EMT practical, showed up with a cupcake and a candle he couldn't light, laughed until the smoke detector scolded us, and called me sir for a week. Trust, we learned, is 1,000 small payments that add up to a house. We made those payments for years: moving day boxes, last-minute tire changes, hospital waiting rooms, the shared silence of a movie when neither of us needed to talk. When Nora and I moved in together, he fixed our wobbly shelf with the good drill and left the bit taped to a note that said, "For next time, domestic God." I told him he was ridiculous. He said that's why it worked. 2 months ago, at Alyssa's birthday, the jokes turned sharp. Somebody asked Nora how she handled my overnights. Mason lifted his glass and said, "He's married to the siren. She's married to the couch." Laughter warmed the table like a cheap heater. Nora set down her fork and smoothed the napkin, but didn't look at me. Later, in the parking lot, he bumped my shoulder. "I'm kidding," he said. "You know you're the heart of the group." I laughed because the alternative was admitting something had shifted under our shoes. After that night, I noticed distance where closeness should live. He skipped Saturday hoops because he was helping his aunt, then posted a story from a rooftop bar. He texted Nora memes he didn't send me. My phone became a deck of cards I kept shuffling for a better hand, convinced that if I refreshed enough, I'd see the shape of truth. A week later, he arrived late to Sunday spaghetti with 2 bottles of red and a new cologne that smelled like polished stone and hotel elevators. "Busy day," he said, dropping his keys on our hook. After he left, I found a duplicate key, blank head, hardware store sharp, nudged behind ours as if it had sidled there by accident. I held the duplicate key to the light and wondered whose door it opened. At first, I blamed my sleep schedule. Night shift makes the world downhill in weird places. Notifications land like pebbles. You miss a step, then a day. I told myself I was assembling a monster out of spare parts. 2 receipts, 1 late arrival, a key without a story. Still, the pieces kept finding each other. On a Tuesday, our group chat popped with memes until midnight. Then every thread with Mason's name vanished. He said he was cleaning storage. On Wednesday, location sharing from him flickered off. Battery saver, he said. Thursday, Nora laughed at a text and flipped her screen down when I walked in. Work thing, she said, then hugged me too long, like a person holding a door against wind. I opened the trash on our shared tablet and found a ride receipt to the Maplewood garage at 11:42 p.m. $13.84, tip left, masked card ending in 41. He texted me at 11:41 a.m. photo of his TV with closed captions. My doorbell camera timestamped him jogging past my building at 11 hours 41 minutes and 33 seconds. I started a folder called Evidence even though I hated the word. Screenshots with dates in the corner, receipts saved as PDFs, a note that said, check gym parking cams. I added a screenshot of a calendar invite called Errand Run at 9 p.m. on a night when he'd claimed to be dead on the couch. I added the photo of the duplicate key. I added the feeling in my chest, heavy and exact. The first time I asked him straight, he laughed it off with expert lightness. Buddy, he said, you're reading tea leaves like spreadsheets. He held up his phone. Blank notifications, clean home screen. See? Nothing. I nodded and smiled, and went home to the doorbell app and watched a delivery driver carry flowers up 2 floors in the building next to ours. The card slipped. The camera caught the corner. Tuesdays make me safe. That night, Nora crawled into bed late and cold. You're quiet, she whispered. Rough shift. I said yes because the truth felt like a wall of fog with rocks behind it. In the morning, my toothbrush was wet before my alarm and her gym bag sat by the door in a way that looked staged. I told myself this was stress, and I was almost right. I labeled a new folder patterns because repetition is confession. People who don't want questions ask for unity. The group chat turned sugar sweet overnight. We love you, Ev. Take a break, man. Touch grass. Mason posted a boomerang of clinking glasses with the caption friends, drama, and tagged me. He DM'd, you good? I hate that you're stressed. Let's hit the gym tomorrow. Every message patted my head and turned my face away from the door I needed to open. At the gym, he lifted like a man who needed noise more than muscle. Between sets, he talked about a contractor screwing him on a backsplash and a client who didn't pay on time, and how he was protecting Nora from your stress. I asked what that meant. He said, you're drowning in other people's emergencies. She needs a little fun. The barbell clanked back into the rack. I counted the plates as if weight could translate into honesty. That night, he texted at 10:07. Home. Finally. Dead. At 10:11, my phone buzzed. A security alert from the garage by Blue Finch Bar. License plate starting with 7MF, entering. The timestamp read 10 hours, 10 minutes, and 54 seconds. At 10:23, he sent a blurry photo of his TV, same living room plant as always, same blanket in the corner. I opened the image details, 10 hours, 22 minutes, and 59 seconds, edited. I checked Uber's Your Trips on our shared tablet, which saves logins like a magpie. The screen read, Mason, 10:09 p.m. From Oak Street to Blue Finch Garage, $9. 16, tip, none. I screenshotted everything, then called Aunt May because my head was ringing like a dish. Slow, she said. Paper, then breath, then sleep. You'll think better after washing a cup. I washed 5 cups and then made a list titled What I Know. At the bottom I wrote, what would you do if your proof destroyed your past? The next morning, Nora set a mug down in front of me and traced the rim with her finger. Can we stop this? She asked. Stop what? The looking, she said, eyes on the coffee. You're scaring yourself. I'm not the one disappearing, I said. She stood, folded the dish towel, and said she'd be home late after a team night. My phone buzzed with a new line on the bill. 046. Outgoing call, 555-0174, 18 minutes. Mason's number, made from Nora's phone, while I slept. I opened a blank note and typed 2 names next to a single question mark. Nora hates conflict almost as much as she hates cilantro. That morning she said it again. Please stop looking for trouble. I wanted to be the kind of man who could, the kind who trusts the world to behave when he is kind first. But kindness without clarity isn't kindness, it's abdication. I brewed coffee that tasted like decisions and opened my notebook. Aunt May answered on the second ring, breathy like she'd just turned a mattress. You called last night, she said. I didn't pick up because it's hard to hold the phone and roll dough. I think Mason is lying, I said. I think he's lying to me. Maybe to Nora. Maybe with Nora. I don't know what shape it is. I just know the numbers don't rhyme. Then write the numbers down, she said. Don't write motives, write facts. Sleep on accusations. Sleep makes liars trip and honest people brave. I took her advice like vitamins. I wrote what I knew. 7MF played at 10 hours 10 minutes and 54 seconds. Uber 10:09. TV photo 10 hours 22 minutes and 59 seconds edited. Nora to Mason 046 call. I printed the bill page and circled the timestamp until the paper went soft. At lunch, I met Mason at the neighborhood bar because neutral ground keeps the room from leaning. He ordered the special and told the waitress. Put the fries on his plate. He's the hero. When she left, he leaned in. I know you've been stressed, he said, voice pitched for concern. You're seeing ghosts. Nora told me. Nora told you what? That the job is eating you, he said. That you're reading tea leaves like they're medical charts. How would she know that better than me? I asked. He raised both hands like a ref and said he just wanted me to be happy. Then he slid a receipt across the table. See, he said. I paid my tab at 10:05. I was home by 10:15. You can relax. The time read 22:05. The merchant line read Blue Finch Garage. Nora texted. Can we talk tonight? No drama. My hands shook just enough to rattle the ice. A ceiling fan clicked like a metronome over our doubt. I took a breath that tasted like metal and asked Mason for his phone. He slid the phone across like a dare. The lock screen was spotless. No previews, no badges, just a mountain wallpaper with dignified silence. Knock yourself out, he said. I didn't. I scrolled like a medic. Steady, systematic, careful with the pulse. Messages were trimmed to stubs. Archiving can look like tidiness until you compare the dates. Then, in mail, a loyalty email he'd missed. Stay perks. Thanks for your recent visit, Riverside Suites. 5,000 points posted. 2 nights. Last week, Tuesday to Thursday. I felt the floor tilt a degree. Work conference, he said quickly, throat catching the word. Cancelled last minute. Ate the fee. Slept anyway. Without telling anyone, I said. Buddy, I don't narrate sleep. I handed the phone back. Show me the receipt. Deleted, he said, casual as a shrug. Why are we doing this? On the sidewalk, I breathed rain until it turned into air. At home, the duplicate key on our hook felt heavier than metal. I set it next to my own and took a photo with the timestamp on. Then I checked Nora's email filters, open on the shared tablet for online returns, and found a new rule that forwarded any subject with Riverside to trash. The rule was created at 6:02 a.m., the morning after his supposed work conference. Rules are confessions that forgot their makeup. I drove to the gym and asked the manager, a woman with a whistle and zero patience, if cameras ever help with break-ins to lockers. She nodded like a soldier. We pull footage for members, she said. Form, date, time. I filled it out for the last 3 Tuesdays, 9:30 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., and left a tip in the staff jar big enough to count as vitamin C for morale. At home again, the doorbell app pushed a clip from 2 nights earlier. A figure in a hood steps into frame, half turns, then moves on. It wasn't Mason. It was Nora, in his windbreaker, glancing toward the street like a person checking weather before a storm. A faint buzz came from Mason's gym bag beneath the bench, and the sound didn't belong to his main phone at all. The second phone was the size and color of a secret. Cheap case, no stickers, a generic clock face that gave nothing away. He noticed my glance and flipped a towel over the bag. Work, he said. Contractors call late. Contractors don't call from prepaid numbers that never text. They ring and leave voicemails shaped like invoices. This one blinked, then slept like a cat under a bed. I walked out before my questions turned into shouting and did something better. I wrote down the make, the nick in the case, and the taped corner on the charger. Patterns, Aunt May says, are just habits that wander into evidence. I pulled our phone bill and printed the itemized pages. Mason's line had gaps where life should be. No late pings, no night calls, just a blank lake after 9 p.m., 3 Tuesdays in a row. I overlaid ride receipts, doorbell clips, and my own shifts. The map looked like a heartbeat with a skipped beat at the same minute every week. I called Ortiz, a PI whose true gift is knowing which cameras point at which sidewalks. He met me at the Blue Finch block in a jacket that made him invisible. Public cameras only, he said. Private ones need consent or a lawyer. We walked the route: garage gate cam, bodega corner cam, bar front cam. He nodded, snapped photos, and wrote times. If your guy moves like a metronome, he said, we can see the pattern even if we never see the face. By Friday, I had a folder that looked like a semester project for a course called How People Lie When They're Bored. Doorbell at 10:06. Uber to garage 10:09. License plate 7MF at 10 hours 10 minutes and 54 seconds. Bar cam catches a pair at 10:14. Cap, ponytail, a jacket I recognized. Then elevator cam reflection at 10:17. The shame of mirrors doing their job. Nora's gym entry pinged at 9:02 and out at 9:11. Nobody sweats that fast unless the workout is a lie with shoes on. Ortiz slid a grainy still across my table. Two silhouettes pressed close by a concrete pillar, one hand on a familiar shoulder, the other on a hip. The ponytail was wrapped in Nora's red scrunchie that lived on our shower knob. What? Not why, I reminded myself, because motives make good theater and terrible records. The what was ugly and specific. Tuesdays, garages, a hotel that offered points for extended rest, a second phone that existed to make the first one look clean. Mason bought a gift bag at Lazarus Jewelers on a Wednesday. The receipt total matched a charge that tried to hit our shared card and failed. Nora had a florist punch card in her purse with 2 stamps gone, and the note, Tuesdays make me safe, scrawled in the corner like she'd written it quickly near a door. I sat at the kitchen table and arranged proof like a medic lays out tools. Ride, plate, cam, email, watch face. The duplicate key gleamed like a bad idea we'd agreed to by accident. I pictured Mason lifting it off our hook in a practiced motion, pictured Nora laughing once loud, and then low, pictured my name in her mouth when they needed to feel honest for a second. I didn't cry. Shock is just quiet with better posture. Stakes weren't just my chest and our bed. They were bills, lease, the way our friend group split rent for vacations, the emergency fund with both our names. If I ended it wrong, I could be moving back into a couch I didn't own by Thursday. If I ended it right, I'd be sleeping without lies for the first time in months, and also alone. Nora texted, we need to talk tonight, please. 7. Mason sent a separate text. I love you, man. I'm worried about you. That's when I realized I was holding 2 halves of the same sentence written by people who believed in mercy as long as it protected them first. I printed the timelines. I backed them up to a drive named Sunlight. I taped my aunt's words to the edge: paper, breath, sleep. The second phone lit on my table as if it had decided to breathe without permission. I answered the second phone like a man picking up a snake. The number on the screen was labeled only with a heart. I said hello, and a woman's voice exhaled room key, and then silence, fast as a match. I let the recording run 10 seconds of air and hung up. My plan assembled itself in 10 quiet minutes. Proof on paper, witnesses who could hear without adding fire, and a room that didn't belong to any of us so nobody could claim home court advantage. Ortiz booked the back booth at Pinecone Diner. Same corner, more light. 2 booths back, he said. I'll order pie and listen if you want ears. Legal in our state, 1-party recording. I printed a card with simple rules. We tell the truth. We speak one at a time. We end when anyone says stop. I invited Nora. Tonight, please. It matters. I invited Mason separately. We settle this now. Bring your calm. Aunt May called as I buttoned my coat. Say it plain, she said. No metaphors. They grow like ivy. What if they deny everything? Deniers love fog, she said. Bring a fan. At the diner, I set my phone on the table and the timelines in a stack. Ortiz slid in behind me with a newspaper and an expression that belonged to a man reading baseball scores from 1998. Nora walked in first, hair up, eyes at half-mast. She sat and picked at a sugar packet like it owed her money. Mason arrived 3 minutes later smelling like new cologne and winter. He hugged her. He reached for me. I took a sip of water and didn't stand. Is this an ambush? He asked, half light, half laugh. It's a conversation with proof, I said, and hit record. We'll keep it simple. He glanced around as if a camera crew might step from the coat rack, and then his jaw set the way it does when he's lost before he started. Nora folded the sugar packet into a square as if it might become a door. Say what you think you know, Mason said, leaning back as if air could brace him. I laid out the first line of the map. Tuesdays, 9 o'clock to midnight. A ride to Blue Finch Garage, 7MF license plate, hotel points, the red scrunchie, the florist card, the second phone. He smiled like a teacher asked a question he'd already graded. You've got a collage, he said. It looks like more than it is. Then I'm wrong, I said. And you'll show me how. Nora's voice came thin. Evan, please, she said. You're scaring me. Good. Aunt May's voice said in my pocket memory. Fear that loves truth is medicine. I kept my voice even. Was there an affair? I asked him. Once, he said too quickly, palms lifted, eyes wide in the way actors say innocence. It was one time, a mistake, months ago. I was drunk. We were stupid. We stopped. I was protecting you. From what, my life? I said. My hands shook hard enough to ring the glass. He reached, then stopped, as if a line had finally become visible between us. Nora wiped her eye with the heel of her hand. It was a bad night, she whispered. We were both lost. Which Tuesday? I asked. Neither answered. Because I have 3. With images. Mason flinched like a man dodging a low branch. Buddy, he said, you can't record this. It's illegal. In this state, it's legal, I said. I checked. He stared at the phone, then at Nora, then at the door. Please, he said to me, voice suddenly young. Don't end us over one bad story. I almost believed him because believing meant I didn't have to move apartments. I excused myself, stepped outside, and called Aunt May from the windy awning. Tell me the exact sentence he used, Aunt May said. I repeated it, one time, months ago, protecting you. She chuckled without mirth. That's a sentence designed to fold, she said. One time? Easy to disprove. Months ago? Your dates are last week. Protecting you? That's control dressed like kindness. Go back in and put Tuesday on the table. I breathed until the air smelled like rain and not metal. Inside, Nora had aligned the sugar packets by height. Mason scrolled nothing. I sat and slid the hotel points printout to the center. Riverside Suites, I said. Check-in last Tuesday, check-out Thursday. The email went to trash with a new rule at 6:02 a.m. Same morning, second phone received a call labeled with a heart asking for a room key. I answered. I recorded. Mason's knuckles went white. You stole my property, he said. I answered the phone you left buzzing in my home. I said. Say, I did not stay there, and we can call them together. Ortiz cleared his throat 2 booths back, a tiny sound like a gavel. Mason heard it and knew. You brought a chaperone? He asked. I brought a witness, I said. For clarity. Nora's lip trembled. Evan, she said, I am sorry for lies. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you I was lonely while you were saving strangers. A clean part of me wanted to hug her because the apology was shaped like a door, but the rest of me recognized a door painted on a wall. Lonely people call friends, I said. They don't rent rooms under a loyalty number. Mason tried a last pivot. It wasn't Nora, he said. You're conflating timelines. Then who wore her red scrunchie and used your spare key? I asked. The night my doorbell saw her check the street? He closed his eyes the way you do before a needle. Say the date you last lied to me out loud, I said, and set the day in front of him like a plate. The 12th, he said, and I nodded because the night had a name now. I flipped the stack. Uber at 10:09 p.m. Garage gate at 10 hours 10 minutes and 54 seconds. Elevator reflection at 10:17. Hotel Wi-Fi login at 10:22 on a device labeled Mason SE. Florist charge next morning 9:14, 12 tulips. Nora's gym check-in at 9:02 and exit at 9:11. Doorbell at 9:48. Her in his jacket, head down. A glance left then right I recognized from every time she'd been human enough to fear being seen. Stop, Nora whispered. Please stop. She covered her face and said something into her palm that sounded like my name with the bones removed. Why? I asked them both. Why risk the one thing we built steady because the world was wild? Mason spoke first because he always had. Because you never needed me, he said, like the truth surprised him on the way out. Because everyone called you hero and called me fun. He swallowed. Because she laughed at my jokes when you were too tired to hear them. Nora lowered her hands. Tears moved without noise. Because I was angry, she said. At nights and sirens, and the way you disappear to keep people breathing, and then come home and stare through me like a wall you keep from falling. There it was, the why, feral and familiar, and not enough to make what dissolve. I didn't hate them in that moment. I hated the way we had all picked roads designed to avoid hard sentences we should have said earlier in kitchens with daylight and simple toast. I'm done, I said quietly. Return the key. Return the courtesy of silence to people who haven't earned my story. I slid an envelope over, a written notice ending our lease share in 30 days, a schedule for collecting her things, a list of what she bought and what I did, a simple promise, no contact except by email for logistics. Mason reached for my wrist, and Ortiz stood up slowly like a clock deciding to chime. Everything after that felt like weather. Friends arrived in clumps of thunder and light. Alyssa hugged me hard, then asked if I could please not nuke the chat. Marcus said nobody's perfect and requested we keep the circle intact. 2 people texted that they saw both sides, which is a way of saying they saw none. I muted the thread and packed boxes labeled kitchen, linen, evidence because moving through rooms with purpose kept my lungs regular. Nora slept at her sister's and came with her on Saturday to collect clothes. We wrote down items, taped receipts to bags, and left the boxes on the hallway rug so no one had to step deep into a room they were leaving. She cried once at the mug we bought at the flea market, the one with the chipped handle. I let her keep it. It didn't feel like losing. It felt like setting down a thing that needed a different shelf. Mason tried 3 apologies in 3 mediums: text, email, a letter that smelled faintly of cologne. I didn't answer. He put rent money in my mailbox in cash. I returned it with a single receipt that said paid in full with today's date. He sent a last volley of rage. You ruined 10 years over paperwork and paranoia. And I slid that into the sunlight folder too, because sometimes you archive bile to remind yourself later what you did not drink. Work noticed. I missed a detail on a run sheet, and my supervisor called me in gentle and sharp. Take your days, she said. Eat food that requires a fork. Stop sleeping in segments. I went home and slept 4 hours without an alarm and woke with my jaw unclenched, which felt like news. Bills divided. Keys returned. The duplicate one placed on a white napkin like a surrendered knife. Ortiz sent his invoice with a note. Clarity is cheaper than denial. Aunt May brought soup, sat on my floor, and told me about the time she left a man who always said relax when she asked a real question. That night, the doorbell camera pinged, and someone stood where I had stood in other weather. It was Mason, hands empty, face older. He didn't buzz. He stared at the button like a man trying to learn a new language by osmosis. I watched from the couch while the kettle steamed. After a minute, he turned and left. I didn't chase. No contact is a boundary with teeth. It protects people who would forgive themselves too fast. Therapy felt like entering a clean room. The first week I said, I'm fine, 3 different ways, and the therapist smiled with her eyebrows. The second week I cried into my sleeves because the body keeps score until it can finally put the scoreboard down. We made rules for exchanges and threads. Email only for logistics, 24-hour cooling offs, no night messages, no sudden visits, a friend present if boxes moved. We wrote them down like a recipe card and taped them to the inside of my pantry because boundaries should live near bread. I built new routines: park runs without music, breakfast with eggs that didn't come from a drive-thru, phone on do not disturb after midnight, even if the city screamed. Nora sent 2 emails, both clear, both short. I will respect the plan, she wrote. I am sorry I asked you to doubt yourself. I replied once. Please ask your sister to pick up the last bag Wednesday. We were polite because love had been feral enough. My circle shrank and got kinder. Alyssa came over with lasagna and no advice. Marcus apologized for seeing both sides and helped carry a dresser down steps that side. Aunt May put a sticky note on my fridge. Drink water before you text. Ortiz mailed a copy of the footage sealed in a plain envelope with my name typed in a font that looked like rules. I closed the sunlight folder, not from denial, but from a decision to live with curtains open on purpose. At midnight, the phone lit with a new number, and I let it ring into the dark. The kitchen has different light in the morning when truth sleeps in your house. It's whiter, less yellow, like a nurse's station at 6 a.m., the hour when ordinary things save lives. I made coffee, opened a blank page, and wrote a checklist because older me will forget and future you might need it. Photograph everything with timestamps. Name files by date and place. Read the footer, not just the subject line. Version history is a map. Ask for receipts in plain English. If they refuse, pause. Sleep before accusing. Fatigue performs fear. Invite a witness. Quiet ears help loud truths stand. If recording is legal where you live, use it responsibly. Separate what from why. Fix facts. Grieve motives later. Don't let protecting you mean controlling you. Return keys and money like you're washing dishes. Clean, warm, done. Choose the life where your heartbeat doesn't dodge itself. I don't hate them. I hate the Tuesday nights we turned into code. I hate the way we handed loneliness a map to our doors and called it kindness. But I love the sound of my own breath in a quiet room that belongs to me again. I love walking past the hook and seeing only one key and not confusing emptiness with loss. I love that Aunt May's soup tastes like salt and stubbornness and that Ortiz signs his notes, be well, like a man who knows weather passes when you learn to read clouds. If you're where I was, I hope this lights your feet for one measured step. Next time, I will choose clarity before charm, even if it hurts.